Good evening, everyone. Hi, this is Sherry Sims, founder of Black Career Women's Network, and thank you for tuning in to another career conversation. I am very excited about our guest tonight, Miss Sonya Aline. She is a media strategist and also a careers expert, former career expert with Black Enterprises. She was with them for, I think over 12 years, if that's correct, Sonya. Was that correct?
13 years.
13 years, absolutely. And she's going to be talking to us tonight about an article that she wrote for LinkedIn. And this article she wrote for LinkedIn is called "There Are No Friends at Work." So when I first found this LinkedIn article, I read it and I was like, oh my gosh, I have got to have her on a career conversation because this is so true. And her, we shared it with our network and it got quite a bit of traction and also sparked some dialogue about it as well. So I thought this would be a great post for a great career conversation. So I'm so glad to have her on tonight. So what I want to do is share with you a few things, share with you a little bit about Sonya, and then we can go ahead and have her go ahead and go right into the intro. Sonya has about 20 years experience developing business and career lifestyles, and that really is her niche. The content that she's done for diverse audiences have been particularly for African Americans, small business, Caribbean Americans, and professional women. She also has an editorial. Excuse me, my little stuff is not wanting to come up here for me. Gotta love your iPad, you guys. Gotta love your iPad. She, as an editorial director, she's developed content for print publications and events, broadcast, and digital. Diversity coverage has specifically been her focus, helping companies to recognize and improve financial performance, leverage talent that reflects the marketplace, and drive innovation for them as well. She has interviewed top business talent, some names such as Ursula Burns, Oprah Winfrey, Don Thompson, and Canadian billionaire Michael Lee Chin. She is also the co-author of Good Is Not Enough and Other Unwritten Rules for Minority Professionals. She was also nominated for an NAACP award, Image Award. She also was is the editorial director for the Women of Power Summit and a member of the Black Women of Influence. And that's also the group that our other career mentor that Marsha Haygood is involved in, her group as well.
Marsha Haygood, yeah.
And she's also on the advisory board of the California Women's Conference, one of the largest women's conferences in the country. And yes, it is. So without further ado, I will introduce to you Ms. Sonya Aline.
Thank you, Sherry, and thank you for inviting me into the network. This is exciting, and for me to do my first Google Hangout.
So, this is great.
I love when I learn new things. So this is great for me. Thank you.
So we're going to be talking about this fantastic article, which is "There Are No Friends at Work." And I think for me, this resonated with me as an African-American woman in the workplace. You and I were just talking about, how we do have specific challenges in the workplace. So I think this article really helps to open up some dialogue about what this means for us. Specifically, even I know you didn't write it that way, but we're going to kind of talk about it that way tonight. So just kind of go into a little bit about the article in terms of the story. I mean, in terms of what you're sharing, in terms of experience, before we go into some of the points that you will want to consider as far as the advice.
Yeah, so when I wrote the article, it was because when I first written the article, it was for Black Enterprise, and it was because a young woman whom I'm a mentor for called me, and she was distraught that this woman that she had entrusted thought she was a friend, and I learned that they are still friends, which is interesting. She thought had betrayed her, and she was really angry and really hurt. And my advice to her was, don't take it so personally. In this work environment, everyone's goal is to better themselves, to increase their standing, to broaden their opportunities. And a lot of times, if a coworker sees that opportunity, they will take it, and sometimes at your expense. And so it may not have been on purpose, or it may not have been malicious, but you have to be prepared for that type of activity in the workplace because it's a reality. And sometimes where we work, we spend so much time there, we do develop relationships, we do have friendships, and maybe we get a little bit more involved in those relationships or more trusting than we than we really should. And so my friends at work were really offended by this article because they said, well, what are you saying? Like, this isn't a genuine relationship? And I said, no. I said, if you read the article, it says that there will absolutely be genuine relationships that you encounter. But in the most part, remember where you are. It's a business operation. And so the goal is to drive business, and you should be driving opportunities for yourself in that environment as well.
Okay, so before we go any further and kind of get a little bit more in depth with the article, I want to share with our viewers that you can tweet your questions to BCW Network CEO. You can tweet your questions to Sonya as well on Twitter at Sonya Aline. And you can also, those of you who are viewing from Google Hangout, you can type your questions in the Q&A box, or you can also send them to Facebook, and we will also be able to answer those as well. So I just want to make sure I covered that before we get too deep in the conversation about this. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is that at the end of your article, it talks about some of these people are quite obvious in their behavior. Others, you discover your interaction with them. Will they disappoint you? Certainly. So let's talk about that. What kind of expectations should you go in? Should you be strategic when you're going into the workplace with, developing these relationships so you won't be disappointed? And then who are the people who are disappointed? Are the ones who are looking to make the workplace more of a social environment? So what does that really mean?
Yeah, I think that people often forget why they're at work. I mean, when you get a job, you're excited because it's maybe a position that you were excited about, and maybe it's the salary that you had negotiated for. But once you're there, you have several goals. It's to enhance your skill set. So however you came in, you want to know that before you leave, you've developed more skills, you've developed you've broadened your talent, you've gotten a certification in something, but you are supposed to leave there better than you got there.
I love that. Let's stop right there, Sonya. Can you repeat that, please, for our viewers? Please, I want my viewers to hear this.
The whole purpose of the job that you're in is to get to the next job. And so you always have to think about how you're going to advance yourself in this position. And sometimes we get comfortable. I know a lot of folks who just sit in jobs and they're just really comfortable. Like, I like the people, I like my commute, we get so comfortable you forget why you're there. So that's the first thing. You have to advance yourself in some sort of way. Even if you plan to stay at this company, your goal should be to advance yourself so that you can advance at that company.
Right.
Second is you have to develop a network. So you have to have people around you who are going to help you navigate in the space that you're in, but also if you should leave, that you have a network of people who can refer you to something else outside of the company. The other thing is you have to, and I should have said this is the first thing, you have to really understand what your environment is. So you have to understand the culture. Every single workplace has a very particular culture. And a lot of times we go in and we just figure we're going to work hard, and we don't understand the environment in which we're going to be working hard. You don't understand what's important. You don't understand who the power players are. You don't really understand who makes the decisions. You don't understand who the influencers are. So you go in there, and it's almost like you come onto a football field and you're bringing baseball gear. Like you don't really know. You're not properly prepared for how you're going to manage or play this game. That's what it really is. It's a game. So how am I going to best play this game?
And you're so right. Go ahead.
So if you get involved in all of the wrong things, like, this person is cool, or this person knows all the best places to eat, or I really hang out really well with this person, or, this person brings me great gossip. Like we have a really good time talking about what's going on in this company. That's how you lose focus. And then when a shoe drops, then you're like, well, how did this happen? It's because you really weren't focused on the things that you're supposed to focus. And again, so can you have friends in a work environment? Absolutely, you can. But that's really not the focus, because you've come to this environment. You already have friends. You have friends at church. You have friends in your social circle, in your sorority. You already have a set of friends. So not to say that you're not going to develop relationships, because that's really important. But I think that even while you're having a good time at work, you need to be strategic about what this work environment is going to be about. Because, are you connected with people who can, move your career? I interviewed a gentleman who was a president of a major organization. had a master's degree from Harvard Business School. And he had said that most of his friends from Harvard, he realized weren't working. And it was so clear, we were discussing how, the whole reason to have a Harvard degree is the network. Like, that's what it is. It's not so much to say that I went to Harvard. It's while you're there, it's like, who are you connecting with? Because the person you're sitting next to is the person who's going to run some bank, or the person who's going to run some industry, or the person who may become president of the United States. So the whole purpose of you positioning yourselves in a school or in a business is so that you make the right connections, so that when you're ready to move, you can say, I have a friend who's a hiring manager, or I have a friend who's influential in X, Y, and Z, and I can connect with them to get to the next level.
And you're so right. You're so absolutely right. And since this is really good stuff that you're talking about here, it's very essential to career mobility in the movement that you're looking for. So let's go into the first one. Because we have five that Sonya will be sharing in terms of the advice. And so she's kind of already given quite a bit of that already. It wasn't even included in here, which was good stuff. So the first one is we're talking about, and I think, and really we may not even already cover this, because we talked about how you may love your job and the people you work with, but at the end of the day, it's still, it's all about the decisions are made and driven by business decisions. So don't you think that sometimes if you're coming into the workplace, like you said, and you're talking about the workplace gossip, maybe even gossip outside the workplace, right? If you're coming to work and talking about scandal from the night before or something like that, do you think that things like that can sometimes maybe create a disillusion of the relationship between the two people because they are having a casual conversation about things that are not work related?
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is that that's a bonding moment. If talking about scandal or a tennis trip or a passion that you have is a bonding opportunity, I think that's a great thing. I think that's important. But recognize it for what it is. This is an opportunity to bond with a coworker, to create a better relationship, to expand my relationships. But I think where we fall into trouble is when we feel like these people are trusted allies, and maybe that's where we lose, because you can have and also I would say as Black women, and I think that's the difference between. And the difference is okay. There are a lot of cultural differences in the workplace.
Right.
And I think a lot of times for us, if someone breaks our trust, then that's a reason to cut them off. What I'm saying is, if somebody breaks your trust, just now you know how they operate. It doesn't mean you cut them off. It means like, okay, now I know how you operate. I've had an exchange with you. I understand how much I can trust you. I understand how you operate. And so that means now I just have to operate with you differently. But it doesn't mean I cut you off, because I may need you to do something else in terms of I may need to work with you as a team member on a project. I may need you to sign off on something, another project that I'd like to do in another area. So what we can't do is box ourselves off once we've been disappointed by people. We have to just sit back and recognize and go, okay, I got that. All right, I got burned. And now I understand how to move forward more strategically and smarter. And that's really what the workplace is. It's not about taking all of it. One of the comments on LinkedIn was, it's always personal. And I said, it's not personal, it's business. And somebody said, it's always personal. And it can be, because you take it as a slight against who you are and what you do and what you stand for. But at the same time, you can use that information to just make you smarter about how you're operating in the workplace.
Well, I love what you said, and I wanted to make sure that that we made clear that this is the first one, which is number one, is that you can love your job and the people you work with, but the goals of the organization are driven by business decisions. So I think the biggest thing that women can walk away from, or should walk away from this is that what you just said is that if they betray the trust, or you just need to look at, okay, now I know how to deal with you. Don't think, oh my God, now, like you said, I don't want to deal with them no more. I'm not speaking to them. They're not getting the privilege, whatever, and not be that way. Like you said, take it personal, but say, now I know how to deal with you. and figure out what's the best way to tailor that communication style to someone that you know that doesn't show integrity.
Right.
I love how you talked about you just need to just now kind of readjust how you deal with that person versus not dealing with them at all.
Exactly. And you can always say to someone, if you choose, like, you know what, I was a little disappointed in your behavior. Like, it doesn't have to be an argument. If you can just let someone know that, you know what, I would have thought a little differently from you, but I just want to let you know that I was really disappointed by that. And you never know. The response you get may be different than what you expected. But again, it's always, you don't ever want to close yourself off. And that's what we do a lot in the workplace. You always want to be assertive and be clear about what all the objectives are, because that's the only way you can play your hand.
Right.
Know how other people are operating.
No, and I like that. And so that kind of takes us right into number 2, which is, some of these things that Sonya's saying is going to be intertwining with each other. But what we want to do is make sure that we're giving you specific bullets that you can walk away from and think about and resonate with how you're dealing with coworkers in your workplace, what you might need to think about adjusting and changing. And maybe there is someone that you don't trust in your workplace. Now you know that. Think about how you can deal with them now versus not dealing with them. So I'm hoping some of this will trigger you all to think about some of these relationships that may be a challenge for you and how you can overcome working with them. The next one is, it is necessary. You've already said that in terms of building and developing relationships at work. Okay, not to be social, so to speak, where it's all personal, but making sure that the goal is building the workplace relationships to accomplish the professional and business goals.
Right. And so
talk about that.
I say that it's not a social exercise. And when I say that it's not a social exercise, I really mean that it's not a social exercise the way it might be at church or the way it might be in your personal relationships. People of color do have to be more social in the workplace. I mean, what we tend to do, I'd like to think that things are better now, and I think millennials will get this a little bit more. But what we have always done is we've gone to work, we've decided that we're going to focus on our job, and we don't need to have lunch with anybody. I don't want to go drinking with them after work. I don't want to go to anybody's house for a fundraiser. Those things are important in terms of developing the relationship. So again, you're not going to this person's house for a fundraiser to develop anything other than more of a social opportunity for the workplace. It's not, if you don't get invited back, your feelings shouldn't be hurt. You shouldn't then expect other invitations to other things. It's just that any opportunity you have for some sort of social engagement, whether it's having drinks after work or joining the softball team or participating in a fundraiser, is so that you can develop these professional relationships. Because again, we kind of close ourselves off. We decide who our little clique is going to be or who our set of friends are going to be. And we close ourselves off from the opportunities of broader prospects. And the truth of the matter, look at the general market population. I had a really good friend and mentor who used to say, when you do studies of how white people and black people interact in the workplace, she would say that, what black folks would say always is that white people are so nosy. They want to know all your business. They want to know, what you did last weekend. They want to know who you married to. They want to know all your business.
Right.
You say that in a room and everybody would laugh. But then she would say, and white people don't really want to work with people they don't trust. And so you have this dynamic of us being closed and not sharing, thinking that another group of people are too nosy. And then you have that group thinking that they can't trust us because we're not sharing. And so you have these cultural differences that are going on in the workplace, and it's really it's across communications. So I operate different culturally, you operate differently culturally, and I'm the one who's going to be affected by that. The person of color is the person who's going to be affected by that.
Oh, absolutely.
To open up a little bit more, you have to be able to develop broader relationships. But again, it's not anything, you don't have to fall in love with anybody. You just have to just connect better so that people get a sense of who you are, because they already know that you can do the job. People have to like you to be able to want to bring you into the higher levels of the organization. Mm-hmm. And so that to get there, it has much more to do with who you are as a person than your skill set. Because if you didn't have the skill set, then you wouldn't be there. And so there are all these other things that go into how you're viewed in the work environment. And that's really important for us to understand if we're going to advance ourselves. So, I mean, that's a little lengthier than what you asked for, but...
Oh, no, it was lengthy but necessary. So, no, that was great. And so I think talking about that specifically, Sonya, share with some of the viewers specifically, because we both know and completely agree that, yes, we do close ourselves off and that we do think, yeah, they're nosy, they're asking questions, they want to be in. But it's about understanding who they are in the workplace as much as them understanding who we are in the workplace. But it's our responsibility to share that, right? To share so they can understand who we are better, and how our thought process may be. And some of it is cultural. But we can, that's where the differences come in, and you share that. So I think share with the viewers specifically maybe one thing that they can do to kind of break the barrier in terms of not being so closed off and knowing that it is okay for you to share and kind of open up, but still, be aware of who your allies are and what the hidden workplace rules are and all those other dynamics that you think about strategically.
Yeah, I think the first thing is, and it's really the most important thing that anybody can do, is you have to find a mentor in the workplace. Not necessarily one outside, but you've got to find somebody inside. And that person may not look like you, may not be the same gender as you, but it's important that you have somebody on the inside who can let you know who you should align yourself with. And so you need a lot of trust there. But it's important for you to have that kind of guidance so that you even understand, like, just what the ground rules are. Like, who are the players? Am I in an area that's even important? Like, how well is this regarded in the company? The stuff that I do, like, how important is this on the grand scheme of things in this organization? So you need somebody who can actually guide you in that manner, and then connect you to the right people. Because that person will say, you know what, there's a after work event, it's at a bar, you might hate live rock music, but you know what? The head of our department goes there all the time. Just come and have a drink. And I will say, you don't even have to drink. You can just order club soda. And because the other thing is, the stuff you learn at a bar when people are drinking is invaluable. So even if you don't drink, you can go hang out and just mingle, have a few jokes, have a few laughs. And all of a sudden now they start to see you differently. Wow, like he's not so bad. Like we had a really good time with so-and-so. And so I think that's finding the mentor to help you understand, where the opportunities are and where the landmines are is probably like the very first rule of entering into corporate life.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And you know how you and I were talking a little bit about the Godfather before we came on, and I think too that finding that sponsor too, in addition to that mentor, which is to me the sponsor is kind of the Godfather, so to speak, because they can, they'll look after you and speak on your behalf for what's necessary. So, having one of those two, once you start establishing those relationships and people, and the goal of people to like you and those types of things is where you can. To me, when the sponsor needs to kind of come into play at that point. So,
you find people who can also. So I think what we understand well is that when you're in a work environment, you have to perform exceptionally well, and that's how you start attracting the attention. That's how you start attracting a sponsor, as you say. People who recognize that, wow, this is a person with great potential. Even if you're not sure what that is, I always tell people, like, you always have a brand whether you know it or not,
yes,
or whether you designed it or not. So even if you are the person that comes in 15 minutes early every single day, and this is for young people who are like, well, I haven't really developed my skills yet, and so how can I even start to develop a brand? Well, if you get in 15 minutes early every day, or you get in an hour early every day, you're the person who gets in early. And so if somebody needs something, before the day starts, they know that you're the person to come to, because your brand is you come in early all the time. So, I mean, or you deliver things on deadline or before deadline. So there are really simple ways to brand yourself in the workplace, so that people start to take note and say, wow, like, what that person does X, Y, and Z. And so for whatever reason, I'm going to connect with her, or you create this opportunity for someone to connect.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. So I want just so you know, one of the main things that Sonya definitely has talked about is being strategic, heightening your level of awareness in the workplace, being open, not so closed off, just kind of running some of these things back to you as you can take notes throughout the conversation. So let's go into the next one, which is clearly outline goals and objectives in writing instead of verbal discussions, and document through emails. Let's spend a little bit of time specifically around that. Why is that so important for this related topic about there's no friends at work? Why is outlining your goals and objectives in writing and no verbal discussions and documents through email so important because of this?
That's really important if you are really skeptical about the environment that you're in. You feel like you may not be able to trust coworkers or or someone that you were dealing with had let you down. So if you're going to be working on a project with someone, you can just send a friendly note back and say, hey, had a great meeting, just want to outline, our roles and responsibilities for this. Let me know if there are any changes. Thank you. Looking forward to the next meeting. Doesn't have to be anything formal, but it's a record so that it's really clear what the intentions were.
Okay. So it's really all about the trust level you have with that person if they feel like this particular piece is necessary.
Or it can be like, in general, it can be your CYA. If you're not sure, you're in a new environment, you're not sure who you're operating with, you can easily just jot everything down. It can be formal. Like, after you have a meeting, you can say, well, I'm going to bring these documents to the meeting so that we can sign off on them and everything can, we're clear about what our responsibilities are. Or it could be a simple email after a meeting saying, look, just want to reiterate what we discussed, and, I was excited about this meeting, looking forward to us working together further on this. Let me know if you have any changes or corrections on this.
Okay.
And so I think
I like that. So just think about that, viewers, in terms of your documentation. But someone you maybe feel like, well, I'm not too sure about them yet. Document the information. One, if they've broken the trust and you need to kind of like readjust your relationship with them, or if you're not too sure about them, then make sure that you document that specifically, because until you get to know that if they're consistent in terms of who they are and their integrity. We do have a couple of tweets out here, Sonya, from the finance boss, and she is our network leader for our Columbus network, and she talks about she thinks that a lot of people forget that the very first thing you must do is get the champion in your corner and perform well. So that's what one of our tweets was from the finance boss. So thank you for that tweet, Makita. So yeah, absolutely. She's definitely right about that. We quickly forget about that when you're in that friend mode. That's why I asked you to talk about that, because sometimes that the personal conversation can skew the purpose of the relationship.
Absolutely.
In the workplace specifically. So the next one we have is about getting emotional. So should be a good one to open up the dialogue about. And in your article, it says if someone has disappointed you, take it as a gift. Now you know how they think, how they operate, and your job now is to be smarter about how you interact with them. And I know you've kind of already talked about that a little bit, but let's get a little bit more into the stop getting emotional.
Yeah, and that's hard for us to do because and I think that's the reason that one of the comments was that it's personal. So you're hurt, and I think that you can be hurt and totally be in that moment of understanding why you feel the way you do, but like be in it for a moment and come right back out of it. Expect to be disappointed in the workplace. I mean, it's a place where you're going to have triumphs and failures and losses, and so there's so many dynamics that go on in the workplace. Disappointment is just one of those things that are going to happen as you're moving through and doing business. So what you don't want to do is get so absorbed in the emotion that now you can't think strategically. You've lost your trust in everybody. You're having this pity party. You feel, vilified. Like all of these things that are just going to stop you and freeze you in terms of how you should be moving forward. It really should be a learning moment. One of my favorite quotes from she's a spiritualist, Florence Scovel-Shinn, is, there are no enemies and there are no friends. Everyone is a teacher. And so if you look at it that way, it's an easy way to move through. It's an easy way to recover, so that you can move through. So are you going to be angry? Absolutely. Are you going to be sad and frustrated? Absolutely. But you need to recover quickly, take it as a lesson, take it as a blessing, and just think, when you think back to the things that have disappointed you in the workplace, they always create some sort of aha moment. It always makes you go, all right, like if that person didn't do X, Y, and Z, I probably wouldn't have known about this thing happening. And there's always been a benefit, I think, to someone disappointing you in the workplace. And so it's really important to recover quickly and keep going. I would say take your cues from the athletes. Like, they get knocked down and they have to jump right back up and they start training and they shake the hand of the opponent when they're done, and they keep it moving. Like it's all part of the play. And so we can't. When you think about, someone disappoints you at work. I ride the subway to and from work, and it's interesting how many conversations on the subway are about how people disappointed you at work. So you're angry with the person at work. You're gonna call somebody at work. You're gonna call some girlfriend. You're gonna be like, "You're not gonna believe what this woman just did or what you just did." Then you're gonna get home and you're gonna call another girlfriend, and then you're gonna talk to your wife, your parents. It's like you spend so much time talking about how I've been ill-treated that you left no time for strategy. You left no time for recovery. And to me, you further defeat yourself by staying in that place.
Well, I think that the one thing I want to go back and to say, viewers, it came from Sonya Aline. I'm saying this now. It came from her about you're going to be disappointed in the workplace. Now, had that come from me, you'd probably been like, "Oh yeah, right, Sherry." Okay, but you heard it from the expert. You're going to get disappointed in the workplace, and it's so true. And it may come from the source that you least expect. I know that for me, it has in the past. It's come from someone that I would least expect. And I'm talking from experience, from my early years of my HR career, that I did not have the emotional maturity to get past that. I just cut them off with the knees, didn't want to talk to them, ignored them in the hallway. It was horrible. So it was horrible. But of course, I've learned since then how to build relationships. And again, like you said, deal with that. But I just think realistically, specifically for you young millennials who are watching, and I know you do, there's some that are, because I've seen some of your tweets, is that you definitely need to understand it's not an active portrayal, and you need to follow the advice of Sonya when it comes to, now I know how to deal with you. And just keeping that in mind when it comes to that. So the last one that I have, and I kind of want to recap some of these, is that always act with integrity, even when others don't.
Yeah, and that can be really hard to do because revenge can be really sweet, but there's no benefit. It's really a short-term benefit. And I'm a firm believer in karma. My mother always said, "Do the right thing." It's a really simple motto to follow. but you should never let someone's bad behavior or lack of integrity impact how you behave. Like, you should never allow anybody to have that much power over you that they would take you out of a place of integrity. And so I believe that if you are, and this is not to say that you're going to be a doormat, right? But this is really just to say that you're going to do the right thing. You're gonna abide by the rules of the organization. You're going to speak honestly. You're going to tell the truth. You can let someone know when they've disappointed you. But this whole thing, like trying to set somebody up or creating an opportunity for somebody to fall or to be embarrassed, to pay them back, is just really bad karma. And it takes more energy to do that than to figure out how you're going to use whatever new information you've had or you've learned to be able to move forward. So you always want to do the right thing.
So what do you want to say to viewers that may be experiencing an environment that's like that, an environment where it breeds that type of negativity, and they're kind of having to endure it until they're able to make a move?
Well, and that's, I think it's this whole thing about culture is the reason why it's really important that you understand the culture when you first enter an organization. Sometimes it takes us, if we don't do that, it takes us a long time to figure that out, is to decide if this is a place where you really want to be. And some people feel like, if they're not working at the place where they're hired, then it's, they feel like it's an all or nothing, and it's not. And I think that's also the important reason for creating your relationships, because you should never feel trapped by your work environment. I can't imagine, and I work in an environment now where, I work for the government, so some of these positions they have for life, and to have a position for life means everything to them. And it's an interesting, coming from the private sector, it's an interesting thought process, because for some people it means that you will take anything and you will subject yourself to anything in order to keep your job. And so it's really important for you to understand the environment, understand if this is an environment where your soul and your spirit feels comfortable. And when I say comfortable, you're going to have challenges, you're going to have certain difficulties, but is this an environment that I think that I can work in, that I can eventually thrive in, that I can understand what the mechanics are and figure out these things? And if it's not, then you really, and it does take courage to decide that, what, this is not for me, and I'm going to have to figure out where else I need to go and showcase my talents and my gifts. But
yeah, and I think that there's some people who can recognize when it's time to explore their options. And again, like you said, someone won't recognize that. And we've got a couple of tweets here. Again, another one from the finance boss. She talks about, as a new associate, should you go into the workplace with a people strategy, or, and I hope my phone did not just die. Thank goodness. It didn't. We're good. So should you go into it with the people strategy, or I think it cut off the, well, Makita, I think it cut off the rest of your tweet because I don't see it, lady.
Your first people strategy is to find your mentor, because your mentor will tell you who the people are, and then you can develop a strategy. That is, I can't even drive that point home enough. You have to have somebody who's going to, because every company has the set of rules for, so, when you look on the website and you talk to folks.
Oh, here it is. Sorry. He says, so here it is. It says, as a new associate, should you go into the workplace with a people strategy, or do you feel it out as you go? That's what it says.
Oh, no. You find yourself a mentor, and that's the first thing you do. And you have them lay out the strategy for you. You have them lay out the land, because there's if you go onto a website, a company will tell you, this is who we are and this is how we do this. A mentor will tell you, all right, but this is how we operate. And so, which are two different things. There's the branding that a company presents to you to entice you to want to either do business with them or come work with them. And then there's the mechanism in terms of how they operate, which divisions are important, who are the power players, who are the people who get things done, who are the folks who are respected here. And you have to know who that is, because you can feel it out. It will be a lot more painful, and it may take you a longer time to do that. If you're thinking you're going to try and figure it out on your own, you need to find that person who you can talk to, maybe a couple of folks. You may have to talk to a few folks, take a couple of people out to lunch, but you have to find that mentor so they can kind of give you the ground rules. It's so important.
And I do think that if you just go and feel it out, that can be a painful process.
Absolutely. Absolutely painful. Because you're coming in there. I mean, just think about how you feel when you're coming into a new job. You're excited. You got a job. This is the job that you interviewed for, and they chose you. And so you're excited, and your energy level's high, which is a good thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you may have no idea, who the folks that are disgruntled, who else wanted your position that you now have. There's so many elements to what's going on in that environment that will not know until you actually talk to someone. I mean, of course you have to feel it out a little bit so you can find the mentor, but that's your goal, is to find that person who's going to tell you what all the tea is in the organization. Yeah,
it's so ironic that this comes up all the time, consistently for women who watch our career conversations we talk about. When you take that new job, you don't know if you're walking into a war zone or if you're walking into something that may have some bad. You don't know, right? And the mentor can help you to navigate through that fairly quickly and minimize your growing pains, right? Of the experience that you may have from that process. And I always believe in making a checklist. Who are potential allies? What are some of the hidden workplace rules? Because it's not a business about you going and doing the job. You got so many things else around you need to be aware of and keep track of, and tally marks and who's who and what's what, outside of just learning your own job. So it's a balancing act. In terms of just being able to make sure that it's all going to work out for you in the right way. And like you said in the beginning of this career conversation, making sure that this job is going to take you to the next level, that you're learning what you need to learn to go to the next level. And that really is the sole purpose, but there's other dynamics that you have to kind of maintain in the process of that.
Absolutely.
So you said you said it completely, perfectly, the way that what part of the sole purpose is, but these are other dynamics you have to balance in the process of that. We also had another member who was also tweeting, and she just kind of quoted you a little bit about the, let's see where she put on here. I've got tweets flowing through. And then she talked about your comment about learn with humility and lead with care. And then also too about what we talked about in the beginning. Oh, she says, she's welcome. It says KMJS 2002 said this is great information and thank you. So she also tweeted that she's watching live right now. So you are so welcome. And it's all of this. Miss Sonya Aline is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this. So you guys, it's 8:45. Please, I know that we can answer your questions throughout the career conversation, but keep them coming. And I have a specific question for Miss Sonya here, if she doesn't mind. I remember specifically when I started, I had accepted a role. It was my very first managerial role, and I was green. I did not know what I was doing. I went in with these blinders, and again, I was one of those kind before I learned how to play the game and understood the dynamics of politics and that, the new levels, new devils types of things. Mm-hmm. And I went in thinking that the personal conversations were a good way to develop those friendships, which to me, in my mind, was building these relationships or allies, which I quickly found out that that environment did not breathe. It wasn't that way. I was not built for that. And so it turned out to be a complete failure for me in terms of my success. Performance wise, again, I was one of those kind who worked well, but the relationships it wasn't working. I have a personality that's not that I can, pretty much work with all kinds of people, but I just wasn't privy to who the allies were, who were the potential mentors that could help me navigate through. I had no clue what to do. So I continued to try to build these relationships and trust and proving myself, but it wasn't working and I couldn't understand why. So I think that for anyone who may be experiencing something like that what would you tell them will be the first thing they need to do if they're having a challenge like that in the workplace?
And a couple of things. I think that, a lot of times when we get, particularly, and women always feel like this, when we get an opportunity, we feel like we're not ready. And when the opportunity comes to you, I believe you absolutely are ready. And so the hard part is to kind of gain this kind of confidence to say, all right, this is an opportunity, and so I'm going to step into it. When you move into the managerial role, so what's really interesting about what statistics will tell us is that if you are smart and you're credentialed and you work really hard, you can move really quickly from an entry-level position to mid-manager. From mid-manager to senior level, hard part, because then it becomes all about relationships. Mm-hmm. And so, again, what I would say is the culture, understanding what the culture is at that level is really important for you to understand. And I don't know if you had mentors or if you had a sponsor, someone who actually brought you along into that role, is to really understand like what's required. Sometimes it's how you dress. Sometimes it's the how you're associating with people in the organization. And when I say associating, like, they may, maybe they play golf, or maybe they have meetings or fairs in certain groups that they'd like you to be a part of. It's really understanding how they socialize at that level on the job and to gain an understanding for that, and then to be comfortable with it. I once interviewed a young man who said that he had gone to Stanford, had gotten 2 secondary degrees at Stanford University, and said he had gone into research because he just didn't feel comfortable on the investment side because it needed that whole social interplay, and so he didn't feel comfortable with the dinners. He didn't feel like he understood the etiquette for these gatherings that would happen outside of the office. Mm-hmm. So it's really about understanding what's required on a social interaction on those levels, for social interaction at that level, and then getting the support that you need. You might need a coach. Like, that's not something that we readily do, but you might require coaching. You might need to pay for some sort of outside assistance to prepare you and get you ready to operate in that realm.
Yeah, and I think you're so right, because what was so interesting about it was that I was working in an environment prior to taking the position. I had a manager who, I didn't necessarily call her my mentor, but she was very influential in my professional development. And, she acted with integrity. She supported my development. She, I looked up to her highly in terms of, I worked to meet the metrics that was, given to me. And she acknowledged that, it helped me to see my worth and what I need to go to, what I need to be looking for next in my next role. Because the situation, I mean, the place I was working with her was unique in terms of where I was. So we knew who she was in. So, and she was very instrumental in helping me to see how I need to learn from where I am and gain what I need to gain to go to the next level. What I didn't have in that particular workplace was the conflict or some of those other negative aspects of the politics. I didn't have to play those things. I wasn't really involved in the politics aspects of being in that environment and working with people who may not have been conflict to my, contrast to my personality and the difficult people to work with, because I did work a lot solo and remotely. So I was doing a lot of work by myself, but a lot of my communication was via email or telephone. And, I kind of streamlined the communication and kept it clear and concise. And as I tend to grow and our develop these relationships. So when I got into this new role with direct reports, and then I had a more hands-on approach with the team face to face, I just wasn't prepared for some of the dynamics that came about playing the game, because I didn't have to in my other role.
And what I always tell women is that you always have to play. You don't have to play nasty, but you have to play. And so I often hear people say, I don't want to play politics. Well, you don't have a choice. You have to play it.
Yeah, and it wasn't that I didn't want to. I wasn't equipped to know how. Does that make sense? I wasn't equipped to know how to play. Yeah, I just wasn't. And so the emotions came in, all those things, like, why is this happening? And it just wasn't working out. Not necessarily because I wasn't doing a great job. I just wasn't equipped to play the game or didn't know how to. So we've got some more tweets here.
I'd like to say too to that, which I think is important, is it's also really important, feedback sometimes, or the review sessions are given maybe like once a year or twice a year. It's really important for people of color to ask for feedback more frequently and more often. Because if your managers are white, they tend not to, they are reluctant sometimes to offer the criticism that you need, because they're afraid of either being called sexist or racist. Mm-hmm. And so we often have to initiate the feedback sessions and be really clear about, how am I doing this? How am I performing that? What would you recommend? Do you think that I'm to, and really get a sense of, really kind of pull out what they think about your performance. Because they may not want to say certain things, particularly if you're the only person of color, because they don't want the charge of, they may think that it's too sensitive a topic. If I say that, she's going to think I'm picking on her, and then I'm going to get charged with a racism charge or a sexism charge. And, I'll just leave her alone before I do that.
No, I think you brought up a very good point, and she's definitely right, viewers, about that. So again, yes, and that's one of the things I didn't know to do. And again, this has happened long ago in my career, years and years ago. But yeah, you do need to ask for that, that performance, and not just wait till your annual review to do that. We do have another question, Sonya. This question is, as a young, fearless, bold associate, what are your suggestions on challenging the disgruntled elder with fresh ideas?
Wow. Well, you don't have to challenge anybody. I think that's where you run into problems, is where you feel as if you have to challenge. Stephen Covey said, "Seek first to understand, and then be understood." And sometimes you may have to break bread or break ground a little differently and have a conversation and see where they're coming from. My grandmother used to say, you get more bees with honey. And sometimes it's not really about the fight. It's really about seeing where there's some common ground. And you have to understand how older workers always feel that the younger person is coming in to challenge them. The older workers, let me not say always, can sometimes feel that the younger person thinks they know it all. And I've been here for 45 years, and we've been doing it this way for 100 years, and now you're going to come in with new ideas. So sometimes it may be, again, finding the common ground, recognizing that you could learn something from this older person, and then suggesting ideas or suggesting things that they could do differently, or even offering a reverse mentorship. Sometimes older workers are intimidated by technology or intimidated by some of the new things that are coming in. And if you just, offer to show them something instead of challenging them, offering to teach them something or show them something different, you'd be surprised how the dynamic can change. I mean, I've had people who have said to me in this new position, wow, like so-and-so responds to you really well. Like they've never responded to people like that, or they usually don't respond to folks like that. And it's everybody wants to feel, for a lot of people, the job is how they identify, like with their self-worth. That's for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so if you're coming in, and particularly if you're using the word challenge, if you're challenging someone in terms of what they've always known and what they've always done, that can cause dissension and resentment and all of those things. So try and find some common ground. Maybe treat them to lunch and let them tell you about the history of the place, and see if there's always a way to connect with somebody. It's about finding that way, and as soon as if you can find a common element, that's the best way to turn things around.
No, I like that. I think it's a good point to make. So I hope that answered your question, Makita, in terms of, the disgruntled elder, or the perception of a disgruntled elder, should I say, too. So, yeah, because you never know with that. But yeah, I think that a lot of the points that you've given tonight have definitely been on target. This has been a great conversation. And if you guys want to read Sonya's article completely in its entirety, you can find it. You can find her under Sonya Aline on LinkedIn, and you can find it under her publications on her LinkedIn page. And if you're not connected, just type in the title of her article, and you should be able to pull it up through Pulse as well, if you want to read the entirety. And if not, we do have a link to it on our website if you want to read it at bcwnetwork.com. So, Sonya, thank you so much for this. Has been a great conversation. You're welcome. You guys can follow Sonya on Twitter at Sonya Aline. That's SONIAALLEYE. I mean, EYNE.
Right.
All right, got it right. Okay, so you can definitely follow her there. And if you want to ask her more additional questions. Sonya also is going to be a BCWN mentor. So once we get her profile and everything set up on our mentor coaches and experts page, you can also go on. You'll be able to go on there and ask her a career related question through our network as well. So that'll be coming soon. So I'm trying to look here through our Twitter to see if we have any other additional questions. Couple of things I want to share at the end is our upcoming conference, which is next week. Can you believe it's almost here? So Saturday, August 8th here in Cincinnati, Ohio is going to be our first annual conference, Passion, Power, and Pursuit. You can go to bcwnetwork.com under our 2015 conference to look at the agenda. And you still have time to register and take advantage of our Bring a Friend special rate that we have going right now. Next week in our career conversation, we're going to be talking specifically about some of these articles that have been, or should I say articles, but some of these reports that have been coming out about African American women and how we are, starting to, we're the fastest growing minority group in terms of starting businesses. And as our mentor from last week, Deborah Gray Young said, while we're leaving corporate America, like the building's on fire.
I love Deborah Gray Young. Wow, she's great. Yeah.
Yeah, she was on. Yeah, Deborah was on last week, and we talked about how to be politically savvy. So that was our conversation.
Very cool.
Yes, and you can and actually for those of you who are new to this, is your first time watching a career conversation, we have our entire library of previous career conversations on our website. Just go to bcwnetwork.com and go to events or videos, and you can see the entire library of career conversations that we have done over the past year and a half.
Wow.
The different topics that we've had. So I want to thank Sonya again for being a great participant and sharing her wealth of knowledge. And this will not be the last time she will be on, guys. I'm going to bring her back.
I feel like I'm part of the family, so that's great.
Absolutely. And so
wait here. I've been here perspiring, so I apologize for that.
No problem. So, but this has been great. We have some great participants. We had some great viewers and asked some awesome questions. And again, you can find Sonya on LinkedIn. You also can find her. You can also tweet her at Sonya Aline as well if you want to follow her on Twitter. Last thing I want to say is that next week, again, our career conversation for next week at 12 noon, you can dial in, and we're going to be talking about, again, entrepreneurship, workplace, why we are leaving the workplace to start our own businesses, and talk about some of the dynamics of why we feel that way, and why all of a sudden now are these reports coming out. And the reports that are coming out are not written by us. The reports are not done by us. They're done by Caucasian men and women who are creating these reports, and why are they doing it and not us? And so we're going to be talking about what do we think some of that is, and having an open dialogue about that. So Sonya, if you're available, welcome to jump on the call. So we'll invite you. We'd love for you to. So I'm going to go ahead and end today's career conversation with this. The life God gave you is larger than the life you've been living, which means that God has all given us special gifts, and it's our responsibility to discover what those are and use those to work in our purpose. So I'll leave you with my saying, which is know your worth, discover your strengths, and work in your purpose. And good night, everyone. And we will see you at the next career conversation. Sonya, you can stay on until I go ahead and end. Have a good night, you guys.